Hey everybody, it's Charles from HumbleMechanic.com. Today, I'm taking your questions on ECM coatings, removing airbags, locking the doors, and more. This is episode 183 of the Humble Mechanic Podcast. All right, in order to get a question on a show like this, be sure to email me, Charles at HumbleMechanic.com, right down here at the bottom. Put question for Charles in the subject. Ask your question right at the very top, mash the enter button a few times, and then give me the details. That's what everybody did for today's show. So thank you very much. It really does help me out a ton. And remember, if you don't see your question on a show like this, be sure to check out the Quick Videos playlist on YouTube where I answer one question per video. All right, let's talk about the sponsor of the day, which is CRP Automotive. CRP deals in a ton of OE maintenance and repair parts, timing belt kits, suspension components, and even fluids. In fact, they make the factory DSG fluid for Volkswagen and Audi. So check them out at crpautomotive.com. And one final thing, if you're looking for some ways to help support the show, one, you can use my Amazon affiliate link down in the bottom, and I get a little bit of credit for that. Or you can join the Crew Membership program. That's where you get exclusive discounts to places like Eurowise, Black Forest, MT Knives, Sonic Tools, S&P Automotive, Petrol Box, and more. In addition to those great discounts, you get exclusive videos from me, one Facebook Live a week for members only, as well as VW Audi training manuals. So if that sounds good to you, click the link down in the description that says Become a Crew Member and check it out. With all that wrapped up, guys, let's get into the questions. First one comes from Cyprian, and I'm sorry if I butchered your name, man, but that's the best I could do. He has a Mark IV Golf, and it doesn't beep when he locks the door. Hey, Charles, can you tell me how I can resolve my problem? The alarm doesn't work anymore, and the car doesn't beep when I open the door, left or right. The light from the door doesn't work, and the bulb is okay. I'm assuming he's meaning the interior light. I checked to see if it's tension on the wire, but it's not. Also, after 10 seconds, if I don't start the engine, the car is locking by herself. Can I DIY in a weekend? What do I need? So you're going to need to do a little bit digging. My guess, and this is going to be a pretty good guess, I think, on a Mark IV, you probably have a couple of bad door latches. This is super common on, well, most generations of Volkswagens. It's really common on Mark IVs, 5s, 6s, maybe 7's, a little early to tell. I've put a couple in, but nowhere near the number on the Mark IVs and 5s. So odds are you got two bad door latches, maybe more. Perhaps the trunk isn't locking as well, so that's going to be something you want to check. If you have access to a scan tool, which I highly recommend if you are going to DIY anything in today's world, you probably want to invest in a scan tool. If you have a scan tool, and I think we actually covered this a week or two ago in a show just like this, you want to go into the convenience module, which is address word 46, and check out what's going on. You probably have faults. You can also look at the last few alarm triggers, but if it's going off or if the car's locking, you may be getting erroneous readings. So just gonna shake and shoot the dice. My guess is you got a couple of bad door latches. You probably had one for a really long time and then only really noticed the problem when the second one failed. If that's the case, they're super easy to replace. You can get the door latches from anywhere, that sells them online. I think you were out of the US, so I don't have any great recommendations on where to buy the parts. But I do know that Paul, my good friend Paul from shopdap.com, has done a DIY video on how to replace the Mark IV door latches. They're really, really easy. You don't need many, if any, special tools. You will need a triple square most likely. That's probably the only real, special tool that you're gonna need. So I hope that helps. My guess is you got a couple of bad door latches. If you don't have any way to accurately diagnose it, what I would consider doing is replacing the driver's door first and then seeing how the rest of the car behaves. You didn't mention if it was a 2-door or a 4-door. That could impact how it behaves. But I would do the driver's door latch. That's the most common one to fail. And let's be honest, that's the one that sees the most action. So I would start there. All right, next one comes from Charles. Great name, by the way. Can I legally remove a factory-equipped airbag from my Mark I 93 Cabriolet? Yes, in 93, the Cabriolet was still a Mark I. I'd like to swap the ugly airbag-equipped steering wheel for a 4-button GTI wheel. A, is it possible? B, is it legal / will it pass inspection? I'm in PA where the vehicle can be registered as a classic motor vehicle. So let's talk about the inspection side first. I don't know. If any of you guys are motor vehicle inspectors in Pennsylvania watching this, make sure, if you don't mind, post in the comment section and let Charles know whether that's something you guys even look at on inspection. Here in North Carolina, airbag is irrelevant. We don't care. We don't look at it. It could have no airbag. It could have deployed airbags just flopping around out of the steering wheel. Airbag is not anywhere in the menu to select pass fail, which means we don't bother looking at it. So if you were in North Carolina, the inspection thing wouldn't be a problem. Is it possible? Yes, of course it's possible. People do it all the time on old cars, new cars. Rip the airbag out, rip the steering wheel off, jam a cool one on, tighten it down, slap the cover on, good to go. That should be fine, no issues with the horn as well. Now, as far as the legality of it, it shouldn't really be a problem. You're not defeating the airbag system or pretending that it still works in some kind of weird, nefarious way. You're taking the whole thing off and putting a new one on where it's obvious that the airbag hasn't been tampered with in an effort to mask a problem. You're just taking it off and putting a new wheel on. So I don't see any legality issues with doing that. The only time you may run into a problem is if you try and sell the car and the person that buys it maybe runs a Carfax. It shows it's supposed to be equipped with airbags. Maybe they don't know what an airbag with a steering wheel with airbags looks like versus doesn't. So if it were me and I was selling the car, I would be inclined to either put the old steering wheel with the airbag back on or just be sure to disclose that, hey, I've removed this airbag from this vehicle so it no longer has a driver airbag. That's really the only way I could see it being a problem, and that's kind of like way out in the field, so to say. I don't think you're gonna have any issue, man. I would go ahead and do it. I wouldn't think twice about it, except when it came time to sell the car. Oh, one tip on removing the airbags on the old cars that have airbags. You have a 20-minute wait time. So this isn't like the new cars where you really can remove the airbag without disconnecting the battery. You have got to disconnect the battery on these cars before you remove the airbag. In addition to disconnecting the battery on the car, you've got to wait at least 20 minutes. They have capacitors inside that'll hold for 20 minutes is what they say. It's probably not that long, but let's face it, not something you want to chance, right? So disconnect the battery, go inside, eat a sandwich, have a drink of water, come back out, and then take the airbag off. You don't want to immediately disconnect it and then snatch the airbag off. You could potentially cause a problem for yourself, and I'd hate for you to email me and say, Charles, I have a broken nose and 5 missing teeth because you told me to take the airbag out. So remember that the cabriolets that had airbags did have a 20-minute wait time before taking the airbag off after you disconnect the battery. All right, next one up comes from Lindsay. Can the accelerator turning off when the brake applied be turned off in the ECU? Hey Charles, I have a 07 Mark V Jetta with a BKD 2-liter diesel in Australia. The accelerator stops working when the brake pedal is applied. I find this very dangerous when edging toward a corner, as once the brake is applied and then I try to move forward, there is a bit of a delay, maybe 1 to 2 seconds before the car starts to move. Can this somehow be turned off? Well, probably. You could probably turn it off. Let's talk about the problem that you're having, and then I'll bring up the turning it off portion. If you're having that big of a delay, before I wanted to just straight turn that off, I would want to take the car in and make sure we don't have anything going wrong. I'm not familiar with this power plant. We don't have it here in the US, so I don't know if this is a DSG engine and transmission setup or a regular automatic or a manual transmission. I'm not totally sure. If it's a DSG, you may want to take it in and get it looked at because you might be having a problem with the car that's causing you to have this 1 to 2 second delay. And 1 to 2 seconds in that space is actually a really long time. It's probably not quite that long, but without experiencing exactly what you have going on, I really don't know. So let's first, before we try and turn anything off, let's make sure that we don't have a problem with our car. Now, back to the question at hand, can it be turned off? I'm gonna say that it probably can be. I'm sure there's a way to go in and beep, boop, 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 hack that ECM or the TCM, depending on which one is doing what it's doing, and tell it not to do that anymore. But I don't know how to do it, so I'll just be upfront about that. I don't know how to do it. Could I figure it out? Probably. But I'm going to be very honest, guys. Even if I could figure it out, or I knew how to do it, that's absolutely not something I'm going to put out there. Things like that are designed for a reason. They're a safety system for a reason. We can have the debate on whether or not we need to have it as a safety system. That's a topic for a whole nother show and a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. So I don't want to start putting out ways to defeat safety systems like this. If we were talking about turning out tire pressure on a Touareg, that might be something I might be more likely to discuss. But when it comes to defeating safety systems like this, I'm not going to open myself up to that kind of scrutiny. It's absolutely not something I'm willing to do. I'd hate for me to tell you how to do that. And this is the big thing, right? I'm not so much worried about you knowing that this is done. What I'm more worried about is you doing this to the car, selling the car, just like the airbag thing, selling the car, the new owner being under the assumption because they read the owner's manual, they're one of like the 4 people that have read the owner's manual of a car, and in the owner's manual it states car will not, operate with accelerator and brake pedal pushed at the same time. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be any help. Even if I knew how to do it, I wouldn't be any help, and that's really to prevent someone from making a change to their car that could cause an issue safety-wise. I don't really want to put myself in that position. So Lindsay, unfortunately, I'm no help for you here. I'm sorry. I would recommend getting the car checked out to make sure that nothing is actually wrong with it. Also, a couple of other things that can make the car upset in that space. If you're a 2-footed driver, that'll make the car mad too. So don't be a 2-footed driver on an automatic car. It's something that just, kind of like what you're talking about, it tricks the ECM and makes it confused, and then it gets all kinds of mad. So I wish I had a better answer. Unfortunately, I don't. I'm just going to recommend that you take it and get it looked at to make sure nothing is wrong and that this is a normal characteristic of the vehicle. All right, got time for one more. This one also comes from Charles. I swear I didn't do this on purpose. I'm curious whether you think it's easier to work on an all-wheel drive Audi or an all-wheel drive Subaru. Some background, I'm in the market for a car that's ideal for a 22-mile commute to work that's got a fair amount of hills and curves and is almost entirely a 2-lane road. That sounds like a really fun commute to work. My criteria for the car so far is that it must be a manual transmission, preferably decent powered 4-cylinder, maybe a 6-cylinder, and preferably all-wheel drive, with a few exceptions that narrows my search to a Subaru or an Audi, though I guess in a fair case it could be made for a 4Motion Passat or an old all-track Toyota, but good luck finding one of those in good condition for a reasonable price. Yeah, no doubt. I've found a few each at or below $2,500 price limit that I've set for myself, but as you can imagine, they come with high mileage and most need at least a little work. So it has me curious enough to ask if you have worked on enough Subarus to have a good idea to know which is easier / cheaper to work on. Any input would be appreciated. So my experience with working on older or really any Subarus is pretty low. If you have Subaru questions or want Subaru information, I'm going to direct you to someone that I'm a huge fan of, both on the internet and IRL, or in real life, as the kids say today. And that guy's name is Brian's Mobile One. Not only is he an awesome Subaru guy, but he's flat out one of the greatest people I've ever met. So I will link his YouTube channel down in the description. Check him out for Subaru stuff, questions specifically, or pacifically as they say sometimes, about Subarus. Now, to the root of your question, which is going to be cheaper? Despite the fact that I just said I don't have a ton of experience on Subarus, it's going to be Subaru. No way, there's no way anyone can convince me, unless you had like receipts compare, that a Subaru is going to be more expensive to maintain and fix and keep on the road than an Audi, especially when we're talking in the $2,500 price range. So I'm putting this in sort of Volkswagen terms, but it's going to be pretty comparable for Audi as well. If I'm looking at a 4Motion or a Quattro manual transmission, I'm probably going to be in the B5 range for the $2,500 price point that you're looking at. The B5s are awesome cars. I drive a B5.5 every day, and I love the car, despite it needing a little love. Love the car. But these cars, by and large, were not very well maintained throughout their life. In addition to that, right? In addition to that, they're big bucks to fix. Everything's expensive on them. It's one of the most cost-heavy cars that Volkswagen has ever built. I mean, it's ridiculous. Engine mounts, links, axle boots. If it's a 1.8 turbo, which it probably will be, you got to worry about sludge issues, oil leaks, timing belt failures, water pumps, water leaks into the car, a whole plethora of problems. So at $2,500, I would probably go more towards the Subaru side. That's not to say that you might not find a gem of an Audi or a bunk lemon of a Subaru, but I think if we took the averages, you'd probably have better luck for less money in a Subaru than you would in an A4 or a Passat of that vintage, because again, I think you're going to be looking at early 2000s cars if you only have a budget of $2,500. So be very careful. Guys, you know, German cars are expensive across the board. Poorly maintained used German cars are ridiculous. I might even consider staying away from something like that. Not because I don't know how to fix it, because I just don't want to spend the kind of time, energy, and money to keep one of those on the road that I don't know the history of. I don't know whether the oil changes have been done. I don't know how it was maintained. So I feel like this. If you only have $2,500 to spend on a car, that's not a bad thing, right? You can get a good car for $2,500. You just have to be a little bit more flexible with what you're looking for, and or have some cash in the bank in order to make any repairs that you're going to need to make on a car of that price point. As much as it hurts my heart to say a Subaru, I'm going to have to go with Subaru. And like I said, check out Brian's Mobile One if you have any Subaru-specific questions, because he's the guy I go to when I have them. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Questions, comments, you know what to do. Hey, if you like this video, throw it a thumbs up on YouTube. I always appreciate that. You can also subscribe right here on YouTube. Find my head when it pops up, or on the blog at humblemechanic.com. Don't forget, if you want to help support the show, get awesome discounts, exclusive videos, private with the crew members Facebook Live from me, as well as Volkswagen Audi training books that I build. Check out the crew membership program, linked down in the description. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course on Snapchat. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.